Hey there! Today we are going to be going through the main idea and context clues processes. Now, I know that you've used context clues to figure out unknown words in the past, but what we're looking to do here is provide you with a process so when you don't know a word, you can think back to these steps. Same thing with main idea. We want to give you a process so if you're unsure of what the main idea should be, you can revert back to this process to figure it out. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Our first process that we're going to look at is context clues. Also, if you hear any noises, it's my cats. They're causing quite a ruckus today. All right, let's go ahead and get started with the context clues process. So our first step is going to be to understand what's going on in the passage. So you want to read the sentences surrounding the unknown word so you can figure out what's going on in what we call the context zone. So what's happening in the sentences surrounding the word. So especially if you don't know a word, you need to figure out what the heck you do know in the sentence. From there, what you're going to figure out is the job or purpose of the word. Now, this is very similar to what part of speech the word is. However, when we had that as the step, so we used to have it say, instead of job of word, part of speech, people would just like list adjective, noun, and they really wouldn't understand what the word was doing in the sentence. So instead of just throwing out random adjective, noun, so on and so forth, what we want you to do is actually tell us what it's doing in the sentence. And I'll give us an example in a minute here. So essentially what you're doing is you're determining what the word tells you more about. Is it describing something, showing something, renaming something, demonstrating something? Is it a person, place, or thing? Or is it some sort of action or description? All right, and then our third step is going to be connotation. So connotation is just the feeling behind a word. So does it have a positive feeling? Does it have a negative feeling? Or does it have a neutral feeling? Now, sometimes this really depends on how the word is being used in the sentence. So the word itself might be neutral, but based on the person speaking in the sentence, if they have a negative reaction towards whatever the word may be, then the word may be taking on a negative connotation depending on how it's used. And then our last step is to just solve and replace. So here's where you are trying to read the sentence with a new synonym of the word that you don't know. Okay, now today what you're going to be doing after this video is you're going to be playing a couple quizzes, on the site quizzes. That's confusing. But anyways, those are linked in the agenda, and it's going to walk you through some context clues processes and some main idea. But let's go ahead and take a look at one of those. So if you pay attention, I'm giving you some answers to the first quizzes. Here we go. Now, this is the quiz is on your agenda that's titled Practicing Context Clues with Nonsense Words. So I've taken Most Dangerous Game passages and I've replaced some of the actual words with nonsense words, and then we have to figure out what the nonsense words mean and come up with the correct meaning. But it's not just going to ask you the meaning of the word, it's going to walk you through the steps. So let's go ahead and take a look at our first one, which the word we're trying to replace is humbaboos. Or no, humaboos. Sorry, I mispronounced my own made up word. That is my fault. All right, so here it is in the sentence. I wanted the ideal animal to hunt, explained the general. So I said, what are the humaboos of an ideal quarry? And the answer was, of course, it must have courage, cunning, and above all, it must be able to reason. So big picture, what we do is we ask ourselves, all right, what is this passage about? So take a second, think about it to yourself. Did you guess this answer choice? If you did, you got it right. So the big picture, so basically you're asking yourself what's going on in this passage, and the big picture is it explains what makes an ideal quarry. All right, let's go to our next question. This is, of course, step 2 in our process. So same sentence, same passage here. And what we're trying to figure out for step 2 is what is the function of humbaboos. All right, now, if we look at the sentence it's in, it says, so I said, what are the humbaboos of an ideal quarry? So we have to ask ourselves, is it describing the ideal quarry? Is it something related to an ideal quarry? So it's a noun. Or is it an action the ideal quarry is taken? Take a second to think that over. Did you guess that it's something related to an ideal quarry? So it's a noun. Now, one hint to us that it was something, it says, what are the humaboos of an ideal quarry? So based on the article the, usually if we say the before a word, it's going to be a noun. So the cat, the house, the person. So that was a hint that this is going to be something. So we know that humaboos is something that is related to the ideal quarry. All right, let's go ahead and move to the next question for step 3. Now, step 3 is connotation. So we have to ask ourselves, okay, is this in the sentence, is this word taking on a positive meaning, a neutral meaning, or a negative meaning? Now, this step is very helpful because if you're on a test and you're trying to figure out the meaning of an unknown word and you know that it has to be a word with a negative connotation, you can eliminate all answer choices that have a positive connotation right off the bat. So if we look at this sentence, what do you think it is? Positive, negative, or neutral? Go ahead and think it over. Pause the video if you want to see if you get the correct answer. You guessed it, or maybe you didn't. The correct answer should be it has a neutral connotation. Now, let's go ahead and move to our step 4, which if you remember, that is going to be solve and replace. So here's where you try to find a synonym that best replaces the word in the sentence. In order to do step 4, you have to go back to your previous steps and understand what you put. So we already said we know this passage is about what makes an ideal quarry. In step 2, we know we said, okay, this word is going to be something related to the ideal quarry. And we know that it has a neutral connotation. So if we are then trying to find the word that best replaces humaboos in the sentence, what's going to make the most sense? Now, one strategy is to say the sentence out loud or in your head and see what makes sense. So we can do this in practice by reading it. So what are the supplements of an ideal quarry? What are the characteristics of an ideal quarry? What are the accusations of an ideal quarry? Or what are the symbols of an ideal quarry? So take a second, think of what your answer is going to be. Did you guess characteristics? If so, bravo, that is the correct answer. So these are the steps you're going to walk yourself through when you don't know a word in a sentence. When you're playing the quizzes, it's not going to rank you based on how quickly you do the question. So just make sure you take your time on it. And if you need to reread a couple times, that is totally fine. All right, we are going to switch gears and talk about our main idea process. So like the context clues process, the main idea process is going to have 4 steps, and the most important steps are the first 3. So first thing you're going to do when you're determining main idea is read the passage, obviously, and then step 1 is going to be determine the topic of the passage. Now, key thing is that your topic is only going to be 1 to 2 words. Your second step is going to be to make a guess about the main idea. And how you do that is you say, all right, I know the topic of my article is, say, pizza. Okay, that's one word topic. And then I have to ask myself, all right, well, what about pizza is the author trying to convey in this passage? Asking that question should then help you figure out what the main idea is. Once you're done with step 2 and you've made a guess about the main idea, you are then going to check to make sure you have details that support this main idea. So say I said the main idea of this passage is that pizza is loved in cities everywhere. All right, that was my main idea. And then what I would do in step 3 is I would go back to the passage and I should be able to find at least 3 details that indicate that pizza is loved in cities everywhere. If I can't find 3 details, then it's most likely not my main idea, and I have to go back to the drawing board and come up with a new statement for my main idea. All right, let's go ahead and do the same thing we did with context clues and take a look at a quick example. So here's the passage we are going to focus on. Now, I didn't mention step 4 when I was originally going over the process. Essentially, what you're doing in step 4 is you're deciding why this particular passage is important to the text as a whole. However, a lot of what you do when you're determining main idea is getting to the main idea itself, and then sometimes it's helpful to discuss the importance of that main idea and the role of the paragraph. Other times we're just looking to figure out the main idea. So here's the passage. It says, being a clown isn't all fun and games. Rodeo clowns expose themselves to great danger every time they perform. When cowboys dismount or bulls buck them off, rodeo clowns jump in front of the bulls and motion wildly to get their attention. In this way, rodeo clowns provide an alternate target, and in doing so, protect the rider. Of course, this is a very dangerous thing to do. So you can see sometimes clowning around can be serious business. All right, so first thing you do is determine a 1 or 2 word topic. If you want to go ahead and think of what that topic would be, go ahead and think about that right now. Pause the video if you want. All right, so the topic here is going to be rodeo clowns. Then we have to ask ourselves, all right, well, what about rodeo clowns is this passage getting across? So take a second, think about what it's telling us about rodeo clowns. All right, so I said being a rodeo clown is more dangerous than people realize. So again, your topic should be stated somewhere in that main idea, since we said the topic was what the passage was revolving around. And then for step 3, I'm just going to go and highlight any details that prove that this is my main idea. So any details that prove that being a rodeo clown is more dangerous than people realize, I'm going to go ahead and highlight. As we can see by this orange mess up here, clearly there are a ton of details that prove my main idea, so I can assume that my main idea is correct. Now, if you can't find at least 3 details to prove your main idea, then back to the drawing board, you need to figure out a different main idea, because you should be able to find enough details to provide at least 3 pieces of evidence to support your main idea. All right, those are the main idea and context clues processes. We will be using those throughout the year. Please make sure you are reaching out to your teacher if you have any questions. See you later.